Good afternoon, everyone. Happy June. Happy June. Do you believe it's here already? It's gotten here really fast. I want to welcome Peoria stakeholders to the kickoff of the City of Peoria's strategic planning process. Residents, staff, employers, commissioners, representatives of the business community, of community organizations, volunteers, and those that invest in our great city. Thank you for joining us today. This is the kickoff to a 4 to 5 month strategic planning process. Well over 400 individuals signed up to participate between the two sessions today. Isn't that amazing? Yes. This is an amazing response, a truly amazing interest, and my heart is full. The strategic plan is our roadmap to the future. It helps us to prioritize that which is most important. It informs our budget process in the fall of each year. We are building a new 5-year plan, a living plan, a plan that we will revisit regularly and update at least every 2 years. We want your help in shaping that plan. We want your input and we want your buy-in, because together we can make greater things happen for Peoria. Let's choose a greater Peoria. I want to recognize the city council members that are here with us today. We had several this morning that are not here this afternoon, but we have Councilman Zach Euler. If you would stand, please. He's our at-large council member. Councilmember John, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Boy, I just had a brain freeze. Councilmember John Kelly, also our at-large council member. You're gonna make me pay for that, aren't you, John? Sorry about that. I'd also, the council members today will not actually be in discussion groups. They're here to listen. You'll see them coming in and out of some of your group discussions, but not to engage in the discussion, but just to listen and network with you this afternoon and to really here to receive your input. Any other elected officials joining us today, would you please also stand? Any elected officials? And stay standing if you would. And I don't have a microphone, but if you would, who are you?
Greg Wilson, Peoria Public Schools.
Stephen Morris, City Treasurer.
Thank you for your participation today. Also, we have city commissioners, those that serve on a city board or commission. Would you please stand? Lots of you. Fantastic. I'd also like to recognize our city staff. We have city staff representative representing every different city department. City staff, would you please stand? Fantastic. Everyone here is just so very important to this process, and we thank you for your interest and thank you for your participation. The model that we are using for the discussion circles today and tomorrow comes from an organization called Everyday Democracy. They are experts in the field of community dialogue and deliberation. Their work has been utilized locally and recognized nationally and internationally. And you can learn more about Everyday Democracy at their website, everydaydemocracy.org. The model calls for small group discussions with trained facilitators that guide the voicing process to assure that every voice is heard. Our focus topics for today and tomorrow will include 6 areas: business support, attraction, and retention. Today, I think there's one group for that. There were 2 this morning. Reimagining downtown. We have 2 groups for that this afternoon, and we had 3 this morning. Infrastructure improvement. We have 1 group this afternoon. Neighborhood investment. We have 2 groups this afternoon. We had 3 this morning. City fiscal health and financial future, we have 1 group this afternoon, and growing the workforce will be 1 group this afternoon. So a total of 8 groups this afternoon. We had 14 this morning. You selected up to 3 areas of interest, and we placed you in one of those 3, with the exception of public safety, arts and culture, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. We won't discuss those areas separately in exclusive groups because they are key to all 6 focus areas. We will share information this morning to help you create that lens of understanding those areas when you enter your specific focus groups. We have 34 individuals that volunteered and trained to serve as small group facilitators for this process. And I would like to ask these individuals that will assist this afternoon's process to please stand. Facilitators, co-facilitators, please stand. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for stepping up and volunteering your talents for this purpose. I hope, everyone, that you will enjoy this kickoff process and participate beyond these first 2 days. We will begin this afternoon by providing you with some key information that will be important to your discussion thereafter. So at this time, I'd like to turn things over to our representatives from our consultant group, BerryDunn. This is the company that the city hired to assist our strategic planning process. So Charlene and Michelle, if you would please come and take it from here. Please welcome them.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? I don't hear any excitement. I need more. Come on. There we go. Alrighty, so my name is Charlene Kirangozi. I'm here representing the firm BerryDunn. And BerryDunn is a national consulting firm, and we do this type of work all over the nation, most recently for the city of St. Charles in Illinois, and closer to you all as well for the city of Wausau, Wisconsin. Really happy to be here and helping the city as part of this process, as we mentioned. So we're planning on taking the work that comes out of these meetings as an input to our strategic planning process, which I'll describe a little bit more. Again, really happy to be here, and it's great to see all the turnout from everyone in the room. It just shows how much you all care about your community. I'll also have my colleague here introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Michelle Graham, also with BerryDunn. Very happy to be here with you today in this process. I'll tell you the same thing that I told the group this morning. I had worked, prior to coming to BerryDunn, I worked in local government for over 21 years, and never have I ever seen a community come out and participate in a strategic planning process like I have with you guys. So very, very happy to see the level of participation that we have both this afternoon and this morning. So kudos to you for your involvement in your community.
Alrighty, so we don't have much time, so I just wanted to briefly walk over our strategic planning process and really what a strategic plan is, right? So you're probably all wondering what's the work that we're doing and how is that going to impact the city overall? a strategic plan defines the what, right? So not the how just yet. We want to make sure that we're defining who we are and what we want our vision to be, but also what our goals are, right? So thinking in local government, there's always going to be some constraints. So we want to make sure that we're focusing on really strategic objectives to make sure that it's all fitting into your vision as well. In addition, we will help the city as well in terms of developing performance measures. One of the last things we want to do is do all this work and develop a plan that's going to sit on the shelf. And to do so, we want to make sure that there's targeted performance measures that are, helping the city track how they're actually working and doing towards the goals that are identified. As part of that being a living document, we also want to make sure that it's tied to the budget, right? So in order to carry out some of the missions in a strategic plan, you need the budget to be able to carry those items out. But also, thinking about the strategic plan as you're thinking about long-range capital investments, city services, as well as economic development. And lastly, it's also a transparency tool to make sure that, taxpayers and residents are holding the city accountable in what it said it was going to do as part of a strategic plan. And as part of the work, we're also going to help in terms of implementation, right? So like I said, making sure that we're developing performance measures and also just a plan so that the city going forward can have all the tools that it needs to be successful in executing this plan. That being said, I'm going to now turn it over to Michelle to lead us into an icebreaker, because I know that's always fun when we do a meeting.
You can't have a large group meeting without an icebreaker, and how many of y'all are going, oh no, I don't want to do an icebreaker. But unlike most places that are going to tell you to put up your phone, I'm going to ask you to actually get out your phone. So there's a mentee.com. You can go to any browser and go to mentee.com, or you can use the QR code, whichever one you prefer. If you type it in, the number you need is 3483-5373. We want to get a feel for everybody in the room. So what emoji best describes you, how you feel about being here today? That's great to see such positive input, and I'm sorry for whoever is sad. I offered it this morning, but nobody took me up on it. I'm available for hugs if you need a hug. I'm sorry. All right, so now what emoji would you use to describe how you feel about the city of Peoria as it stands today?
Someone is not following instructions there.
Yeah, there's a couple there. That's great. Well, thank you for your participation in that, and thank you for being here in this process, because success, according to Benjamin Franklin, success is the residue of planning. So thank you for participating and wanting to be a part of it. So the last one that we want to know, what is one word to describe how you hope Peoria will look or feel in 5 or 10 years? What was one word that you would use? And what you're going to see is it's going to be a word cloud that's going to come up. And the size of the words is in correlation to how many times it shows up. So if more people are entering the word, it's going to be larger. A lot of similar words to this morning. Awesome to see. Awesome to see such positivity that you guys want for your city, and that is all right. So that's good. It gives us an idea of the group that we're working with today. And again, glad to see that you are all here and participating. And I think there are a variety of presentations. The first one being from the city manager.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. We do have Councilman Dennis Sear came in. I'd like to recognize him. We did recognize all the other elected officials, so we wanted to call you out and say thank you for being here, sir. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and level set before you get started, and then I'm going to turn it over to the chief and to Melodi Green, our Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, and then Stacy Peterson, our Communications Director, to talk about some of the lenses we want you to think about things through today. But I'm just going to kind of give you a quick overview of the city in general. So, the city government, we've got 688 employees. We have a budget of about $265 million. The largest area of our budget is public safety, then it's public works, and then we focus on community development, economic development, and administration. Just a quick snapshot on our revenues and what we have. Well, about 60% of our budget is local sources. The rest come from either debt, state sources, or federal sources. With that, sales tax is our largest revenue stream, both state and local sales tax. Followed after that by property taxes. And then on the expense side, our largest expenses are for our employees. This is really funny. This morning I was nervous. I was feeling really nervous. I don't know why. I talk all the time for my job, and I'm nervous again. I don't know why. It's kind of funny about that. So looking at that, on the expense side, if you look at our capital budget, it's about 25% of our budget. With that, most of that is going to streets, drainage, stormwater, and then equipment and traffic. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about and really kind of focus in on for a little bit is the challenge we have with pensions. I don't know why. Seriously, I really don't know why. So if you look at our public safety pensions, this is a requirement that we have from the state government of having to fund our public safety pensions for police officers and firefighters. The costs that we have there are growing tremendously, faster than any of the rate of inflation that we have, and it's going to crowd out our services and our ability to deliver services as we move forward into the next several years. So over the last 3 years, the budget each year has been growing. It went from, in 2021, we had about $26 million of funding for police and fire pensions. This year, it's up to $31 million. Next year, it's probably going to be $33 or $34 million. With that, we have to put money aside for public safety pensions. We do that through property taxes. We do that through other resources. Over the last 3 years, $21 million has come from the general fund. We've had to transfer that into our public safety pension funds. That's about a quarter of what we've been putting away. That number is going to continue to grow year after year. The good news, at least for the short term, and as we start thinking about that as part of this planning process, is that we've had 2 really good years of economic growth and recovery, as well as federal funding that we've received from the federal government through the American Rescue Plan. That's really saving us in a lot of ways. So we're going to draw that money down through 2027, and so you're going to see that over the next several years, we're going to be drawing that spending down, and our reserves are going to go down, but that's going to allow us to kind of glide into the challenges that we have with this increased cost of pensions. But as we talk about the planning sessions today, and as we get into that, we want you to think about that because we will be restrained and constricted from a resource perspective very soon. In the next 5 years, we're going to be facing that problem. So what has the city been doing? Well, as I mentioned, within the American Rescue Plan and from the state of Illinois, we've had unprecedented funding for violence reduction and violence prevention work. We got nearly $8.25 million of state funding for public safety and for violence prevention work. So that strategy, the chief is going to drill down on that a little bit further about what we're doing there. Recently, the city council, in an effort to support a $25 million grant from the state that came to the Peoria Civic Center, agreed to issue $20 million in bonds that will be paid for from hotel, restaurant, and amusement taxes. Those dollars are going to make sure that we invest in this facility because of its importance to the region, but also it's going to help us to ensure that we have professional hockey still here in this community. So that's something that's really important as well. Yes. And then third, as we look at this, you can see the map with the route from Peoria to Chicago. We've had IDOT commissioned a study earlier last year where within that study what they mentioned is that there is the potential and the feasibility of running a route from Peoria to Chicago and back to Peoria. So we are in the process right now. We've been working with all of those communities that you see on the map to apply for the new corridor identification program, which is a new program that the federal government has that if we're successful, what it's going to do, it's going to pull in some additional federal money that will help us to do the next phase of the feasibility work so that we can analyze if this can really be something that we can really do. What else are we working on? So here you can see the little EV charging icon. That's really the map that you'll see if you ever see an electric vehicle charging station. That's what's coming up. We're partnering with a number of communities in the area, a number of local governments in the area to apply for $10 million for electric vehicle charging infrastructure in the region. And that's something that we're looking to try and see more and more of. We're seeing more and more electric vehicles. We want to make sure that we're working on that. So we're working with a number of different local governments on that front to do that. In addition, you see the street light in the upper right-hand corner. We're receiving from the state of Illinois $2.5 million to improve our streetlight infrastructure in the city. We're going to do also with that, we're going to take $500,000 of our American Rescue Plan funds and put it towards a smart streetlight pilot project where we can use smart city technology, smart technology to look at traffic counts, to look at pedestrian counts, to be able to use it in different ways to monitor parking on streets. And so we're going to be piloting something here in the next year on that front. In the bottom right, you see the picture. That's a picture of the new version of Harrison Homes. And we are working with the Housing Authority on a Choice Neighborhoods grant. It's a planning grant that we're applying for. But the goal here is that we would be able to take the area around Harrison Homes, look at how we can transform and move away from the existing post-war housing that they have and move to more of the newer housing that you see in the picture here. And then also look at how we can use that as a vehicle to help transform the south end and the far south side of the city. And then lastly, we've applied for a $25 million transportation grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation, which would extend and improve Pioneer Parkway. And what and I'll talk about from an economic development standpoint in a minute why we're doing that, but what we're really looking at doing is trying to extend it out to Radnor Road, where then we can connect Pioneer Parkway across Route 6 with some state money. They've got $42 million set aside that if we ever get to Radnor, they'll be able to connect that, and we'll be able to connect that out to, connect Pioneer Parkway all the way out to Route 6. So what I want to do right now is talk about some of the study topics in the areas that we're going to be working on and just try and at least frame this up before I pass it over to Chief Echevarria to talk about public safety. But as we look at this, when we talk about business support, attraction, and retention, it really is there to help grow our city, to expand our tax base, and to provide economic opportunity for all Peorians. The study areas should identify issues, actions, and activities that would support and retain local businesses and attract new business to Peoria. So looking at that, just a couple of other points with some of the pictures on the slides here. Our economic development team, which is small but mighty, we have 3 people that work with our assistant city manager, we have an economic development manager, and an economic development specialist, worked over the past year to get $1.4 million of small business grants out to the community. And that's a picture that you see in the top right of the slide. In addition, we also had a commercial rehabilitation grant, which committed over $400,000 of ARPA funds to the small businesses in the or to other businesses in the community, which leveraged about $1 million worth of private investment. We're doing a new technology innovation grant that's designed to support the expansion of tech startups and also to stimulate growth in that emerging sector. And then lastly, we use a lot of place-based economic development incentives. And what you see on the bottom right is our most recently adopted TIF. This is in the Medina Plains, Allen Road Business Park TIF. This is the area south of Route 6. And it's an area that's zoned industrial. It was always designed, the city planned this out in the mid-90s for looking at how we can grow this area from an industrial standpoint. So we've created a TIF district to help to drive the incentives. There's already sewer capacity in that area, but we use those type of geographic-based tools to help to drive investment. On the left side of the slide is the Galena Road area, where we're also looking at creating another tax increment financing district to work in that area as well. We also use Enterprise Zone, which is a state program. There's a River's Edge Redevelopment Zone program that we use. We use all of those types of programs to help us to drive economic development. The next study topic is reimagining downtown. Despite downtown having a relatively small share of the city's overall geography, downtown delivers significant economic and community impacts across this city and across the region. Beyond being a great place, what are the key characteristics that could make downtown even more vital, strong, and active? So those are what we want you to think about, because with downtown, we want to make sure that it's dynamic, that it's creating opportunity, and that it's available for everyone, and drawing people in to work, play, and live. So within that, just a couple of quick points. Top left is a picture of some of the work that we've been doing on our downtown riverfront plan. We are waiting on a $15 million grant from the state of Illinois to help us to work on the riverfront from bridge to bridge, so from the Murray Baker Bridge to the Bob Michael Bridge, looking at redeveloping that area. So we've been working on a plan that we'll be taking to the City Council very soon. Obviously, the Civic Center is a very important part of downtown, and there's a picture there of I think that was one of the Disney events that they had here. Looking at downtown, we're doing some of the design work on our streetscape with Adams and Jefferson to move that from one-way to two-way streets, so we're working on that as well. That project will run probably through 2026, I think is where we're probably thinking that that's going to go through. And then lastly, the warehouse district. One of the points that I want to talk about with the warehouse district, our overall city population declined by about 2,000 people in the last census. But in downtown and in the warehouse district, it actually grew. So we are creating a new neighborhood, and we're creating a living environment for people that don't want to have a yard, that want to live in a more of an urban setting in our downtown and in the warehouse district. And within that, just a couple of points. We've just recently, the council just recently approved a redevelopment agreement, a $40 million development project that's going to add 176 new apartments and 2 warehouses in the warehouse district. We've got right now 126 units under construction on Washington Street, another 99 under construction on Adams Street, and that's in addition to the over 400 that have already been built. So we're continuing to see that kind of growth of building a new neighborhood inside the city of Peoria. With the study topic about growing the workforce, we have a lot of partners that we work with on this front. And here, what we talk about with workforce development is that it's an essential component of community and economic development in any economic climate. So the goal of this study topic is to identify a wide range of activities, policies, and programs to sustain and retain a viable workforce that can support the current and future business and industry. And in that front, the GPEAK program is a program that has been really driven by ICC, but as well by the Regional Workforce Alliance, to try and move people towards getting the credentials they need to go on in the workforce. The Choose Greater Peoria initiative is an effort that has been developed by not only an investment by the Gilmore Foundation, but by the entities, the EDC, the Chamber of Commerce, Discover Peoria, to really focus on talent attraction, trying to attract people to Peoria and getting them here. We also have the Cradle to Career Initiative, which is being a joint initiative between the ICC and the Peoria Public Schools in order to try and look at how we might be competitive enough to apply. We've come so close in 2 different applications to getting a $30 million Promise Neighborhoods grant to focus on the 61605 zip code, and we're going to take another run at it. But we've got $500,000 to start that program, and we're looking at that as well. And then there's the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program, where this year we have 100 kids age 14 to 18 that are getting an 8-week exposure to the workforce in different public and private businesses throughout the city. When we talk about the next study topic is neighborhood investment, what we want to talk about are strong neighborhoods are the foundation of a strong city. And so the goal of this study topic is to identify issues, actions, and activities that can improve the livability of our neighborhoods. I'm going to start kind of at the top of the clock with a picture of Treewind Park. This was an effort that we did with our friends at the Park District. We gave them $600,000 to redo Treewind Park. It's a fantastic, if you haven't been down to Treewind Park, go down and take a look at it. It's phenomenal. New basketball courts, new playground equipment, new veranda in the middle, and we're giving them $875,000 this coming year so that we can focus on Morton Square Park and Logan Park as well. So we're really excited about that. We've also, we don't have a picture up here, but we took $2 million of American Rescue Plan funds coupled with $1 million earmark from Congresswoman Bustos, and we took down McKinley and Harrison schools. And I think that, it's hugely important. They have been symbols of disinvestment in the neighborhoods that they are in, and we want to make sure that they're down, and now we can plan for the future in those areas as well. Our community development team focuses in a lot of areas. They focus on a lot of issues such as housing, and that's very important. So you see pictures of the housing that we have, the neighborhood activities that are going on. They are focused on issues such as helping people get new roofs on their houses, helping people with utility assistance, making sure that we've got money for first-time home buyers in different neighborhoods, as well as helping with affordable housing and homelessness issues as well. The next study topic is infrastructure investment. Infrastructure includes our roads, bridges, buildings, waterways, broadband, and utilities. The goal of this study topic is to identify the issues, actions, and activities that the city can take to improve our community's infrastructure. So I'm going to start on the top right. That's a picture of the first year one's effort of our combined sewer overflow. This was a $5 million project that we did in the North Valley with the effort there to try and put in permeable pavement and as well as bioswales so that we can capture and infiltrate the water before it gets into the sewer system and then ends up being belched out with other sewage into the Illinois River. Moving down, you'll see the Edward B. Gaines Jr. Fire Station 4. That was an investment that we made. That's a $3.1 million investment for the fire department with a new fire station in the south side on Western Avenue that really maximizes their location for responding to calls on the south end. In addition, we had $3.2 million worth of sidewalk work, thanks to the American Rescue Plan, and a $2 million federal grant that went along with that. We've completed the Rock Island Greenway, and we've also finished doing some work and improvements to expanding Riverfront Park by acquiring the Samansel property just south of Spring Street and working on that as well. Other roadway projects, in the middle on the bottom, you'll see that's Western Avenue. That was a $15 million project that we did, and that was going from Adams Street up to Lincoln. So that was a $15 million investment. And then the last picture, bottom left, is Charter Oak Road and the resurfacing that we did and the mill and overlay work that we did on Charter Oak this past year. The last topic I want to talk about is an important one. It goes back to those slides that I was talking about when it comes to public safety pensions and the challenge that we have with that. And that's fiscal health and our fiscal health and financial future. The fiscal health of the city is vital to service delivery. Without financial resources, the city would not be able to meet and maintain infrastructure, nor continue to provide the staffing levels that Peorians have come to expect from the city. So the goal of this topic area is to identify the actions, issues, and activities that can bolster our financial health and to ensure that we maintain the resources that are needed to serve the community. And as I talked to you earlier, about 40% of our budget is people. That's really what this slide represents. I mean, our employees are so important for our service delivery, whether that's in community development, public safety, public works, police department. It's important that we have the resources to be able to provide those services, and we know that we're coming into a period of time where we're going to be fiscally challenged. So again, as we turn this over and we start thinking about the other lenses, I want you to think about that as you go into the discussion circles, because I think that's something that we have to deal with as the city, and the city council will certainly have to deal with it as we look at spending decisions into the future. So thank you, and at this time I'll turn it over to the chief and let him come forward.
Good afternoon. Man, the energy is low this afternoon. You guys must have had a big lunch. So we need a little bit more energy just to get the speakers motivated up here. Let me start my time here because I got to keep this under 10 minutes. So thank you. Let me get on my... So public safety represents a growing challenge for Peoria and is at the heart of the 6 focus areas that the city manager talked about. Business support, attraction and retention, reimagining downtown, growing the workforce, neighborhood investment, infrastructure improvement, fiscal health, and financial future. And we may not always start with public safety in mind when we talk about these 6 areas. However, understanding public safety's role will help inform future priorities and focus. So in talking about the next slides here, this is just going to be kind of a high-level overview to give you in this short period of time. Ending gun violence. In 2021, when I arrived, we sat down with the command staff. We came up with, at that time, about 13 guidelines for us to follow and just kind of keep us on track. We pivot every so often. We add some more, we take away, and it's just kind of a living document for us to continue to stay focused on one of our top priorities here, which is, high crime and reducing crime. These guidelines are one is looking at data-driven approaches. How are we using data to where we need to be? What areas do we need to be working at? Intelligence gathering and dissemination. How are we gathering this information? How are we sharing it, not only internally, which is important, but externally as well? Don't believe that internally, sometimes police officers want to keep some information within different divisions, but we need to share that information internally as well as with our general public. Our technology initiatives. Our National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, NIBIN, we have that here in our police department. It's a camera system to look at shell casings. ShotSpotter, you've heard about it. Our Gray Key mobile device forensic tool, we used to have 1, now we have 2 because of the amount of technology in cell phones and as we work crimes, the amount of cell phones we have to download. Petitions to revoke probation. How we respond to shooting incidents. And what I mean by that is, when we respond, what are we doing? But what are we doing afterwards? What's the response after that same day, the next day, and the following weeks? What's that response look like? Our investigative operations, the use of undercovers, confidential sources, and our confidential informants, communication with the state's attorney, community messaging. We have some community awareness funds that we're using. We're pushing approximately $50,000 this summer into our safe summer. We call them summer safe zones. We partner with the park district, and we have summer safe zones where we will take over some park areas and have a safe place for our children to be out and play. Our gun buyback events, we purchased over 200 guns during those. Our outside partnerships, our Greater Peoria Auto Crimes Task Force, which is comprised of Secretary of State, our police department, and the Sheriff's Office. And there's over $2 million that we've gotten from grants there, and that's this first year, and we should be getting that for the next 3 or 4 years. Looking at ordinances and legislation, this is where our co-response came from. We wrote the legislation here and pushed it up to our representative. We've gotten over $3 million for that, and I'll talk about that just a little bit further down. Nuisance abatement and expansion of the ATF task force. We did get that completed. It's the Peoria Area Federal Firearms Task Force. It's working out of our police department. We have an ATF special agent, a FBI special agent. We have 2 Peoria police officers who are federally assigned task force officers, state police investigators, Illinois Department of Corrections, Peoria County Sheriff's Office, and we're fortunate to have the Assistant United States Attorney, Ron Hanna, as our lead federal prosecutor assigned to the unit, working directly out of the police department. And we've had several cities come visit us to figure out how we do that. We're the only city in the state of Illinois doing that. And our walk and talks. You've seen it on the news. We have 8 scheduled for this summer. They're every Thursday through July, so if you don't have anything going on tonight, come on out, look up the information on Facebook. Other violence prevention efforts are new armadillo box trailer concept that we're looking at, some restorative justice programs that we're doing, and I see Friendship House in here. That's one of our partners that we're currently working with, bike patrols, and we're in the process of implementing a no as in K-N-O-W, and no more campaign on the data transparency efforts that we are trying to accomplish here in the police department and for the city. Technology. Tip 411 has been a game changer for us. It's a text app where you can text some information and we're able to ask questions back anonymously. Very simple, but that didn't exist before. We could only get information and our detectives didn't have an opportunity to ask further questions. Our flock safety license plate reader cameras that capture objective evidence like license plates and vehicle details and send real-time alerts so we can take the investigative measures necessary to solve crimes. Trailer cameras, these are mobile video surveillance cameras that help the Peoria Police Department prevent and investigate crime. Checking my time. Our current projects, right? I talked about the co-response and the $3 million. So what we're doing with that is we're creating what's called the Peoria Police Department Social Services Unit. And if you're familiar with 2321 North Wisconsin Avenue, which is currently the Peoria Police Department Resource Center, that is going to be changed to the Social Services Unit, where we'll have a director. We're going to have 8 licensed clinical social workers. We're going to have interns. We'll have an admin aide and an analyst working out of that. This team will respond to mental health calls, but will also assist victims after an incident occurs. We need to police differently, and we need to have the experts in place to do that, and that's one of these efforts. Our crisis intervention vehicles. These vehicles, to make it very simply, an office on wheels. We're able now, when we have a victim of a crime, we oftentimes have to put them in the back of a squad car to talk to them. But we don't want to re-victimize a victim. We want to have some respect for them and keep them out of the public view. And so this is an opportunity to be able to take them into a mobile office, if you will, and be able to still have a conversation with them, talk to them, to de-escalate situations if we need to, with a second vehicle, still talking to a suspect if we need to do that separately from that vehicle. And we have a quick response vehicle. Currently, we're very lucky, and I don't know how much people know that we have a fire department we have SWAT medics, tactical medics that work out of our fire department. You don't see that. I don't know if there's any other city in the state, maybe Chicago, that may have that. We're very fortunate to have a fire department that's willing and wanting to do that. This vehicle is a vehicle for them. We're not in the business of transporting. We have AMT for that. But this provides an immediate evacuation from a hot zone where the ambulance wouldn't be at, while providing medical safe haven for patients' evaluation. So we're able, again, put them in a safe place, whether it's officers or victims of a crime, put them in a safe place, be able to talk to them. Our fire department is able to triage and get them the assistance they need with the other professionals. So we're very fortunate to have that. And to finish up, our recruitment. If you see the image here, we did a recruitment video, which was an all-female recruitment video. If you've not seen it, please go on Facebook, like it, take a look at it. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal video. But everything you'll see is just women only, being very intentional in our recruitment efforts. We were very excited about that. We are in the process of finishing up a second video that shows the whole department. everybody that works there. And we're doing that with Discover Peoria, this is another one of our partners. Interview Now. It's an app that allows our recruitment sergeant and officer, which we have put in full-time now, to streamline the vetting process by pre-qualifying candidates interested in Peoria Police. They can start the process by snapping a photo of a QR code or sending a text. And then our National Testing Network is a test that is nationwide. Candidates can schedule an online test, go into a center in over 32 states, or we can proctor the exam with it. Process allows us to cast a wider net and gain greater numbers of diverse qualified candidates into the Peoria Police Department. Again, one of the things we're doing with this through some grants that we apply for is to make the entry easier, is not charge. We don't charge anybody that takes the test in Peoria. We're trying to continue to not charge anybody and lower that barrier of entry into the Peoria Police Department. We have a physical fitness team that trains 3 days a week with potential candidates. One of the points that we found where we have failures at is people are failing the physical portion to get into the job. We've had 100% success rate with anybody that's been part of our physical fitness team and has come there. I don't know the vehicles out here still, but we have a very high visibility recruitment vehicle that drives around with a lot of information on it, QR codes, and we're very excited about that. So without further ado, I went over by 19 seconds, I'll present Melodi Green. I'll give this to her so it doesn't fall.
I still want my 19 seconds back. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Melodi Green. I'm the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the City of Peoria. In the DEI space, we talk about safe spaces a lot. So before I start my conversation with you all, I want to make sure that I bring the safe space here to you today. And I'm bringing this safe space because sometimes the topics that I deal with can be heavy. We're talking about equity today. As we move forward with our strategic plan, the goal is for us to keep equity at the center. The Annie E. Casey Foundation says that equity involves trying to understand and give people what they need to enjoy full, healthy lives. Equality aims to ensure that everyone gets the same things. Like equity, equality aims to promote fairness and justice. But it can only work if everyone starts from the same place and needs the same things. Okay, we know we don't start from the same places, right? And we certainly know that we don't all need the same things to enjoy happy, healthy, full lives. But yet still, we all want to live our best lives. We all want to live the best and be prosperous and productive and happy in our society. Disparities are persistent. Keeping equity at the center is how we can help to eliminate barriers. So as you prepare to move out into your study groups, into the 6 areas, the ask is that you continue to keep equity as the center of your thoughts, along with public safety and along with the arts. 6 areas here shown on the slide. Let's talk about some examples that you take to your study groups with you. Growing the workforce. What are some of the questions that we need to be asking when you get into these study groups? What are the barriers that we face when we are attempting to grow our workforce? What particular groups are facing specific barriers and why? Does our workforce mirror the community in which we live? And if it doesn't, why doesn't it? And if it doesn't, how can we help advance the city to a state where it does mirror our community? What demographics are being left behind? What career fields are certain demographics lacking in? Let's take reimagining downtown. We can reimagine downtown. But is our view inclusive when we do that? Does our view consider youth? Do we consider adults? Do we consider disabled or differently abled individuals? Do we consider diverse racial backgrounds and cultures? Do we consider diverse income levels and who can benefit from our downtown based on the income that they bring in? Neighborhood and infrastructure, similar questions we should be asking when we get into these breakout sessions. Where are we focused on our investments? What neighborhoods are we focused on and why? What neighborhoods need attention? Can a kid from anywhere in this city step outside and head to school or go outside to play and do so in a walkable environment, in a safe environment, in a clean environment where they feel healthy and supported? And can that child's parent leave out of the house and find sufficient transportation to join that workforce that we claim we want them in? These are the questions that we should be asking. And these are definitely the questions that we ask if we keep an equitable lens at the forefront. So this slide here is a demonstration of an equity framework. And these can be found on the internet. Maybe you all have seen many of them in other areas, but this is an example of a framework that would help the city move forward with this equity lens. So for example, we can set goals and set goals to reduce and eliminate inequities. We can develop an equity toolkit and start to use that throughout all of our policies and procedures and through everything that we do as an organization and that we filter out into the community. We can commit to equity in our policy decision-making. We can utilize best practices for public participation, which is what we're doing here today. We can ensure equitable delivery of services because at the end of the day, we are public servants, and our goal is to serve our community in the best way that we can. And we can assess available data to identify and measure equity or inequities. The gist of this is that if we do this and we maintain this equity framework in everything that we do, we are really operationalizing equity throughout our organization and into our city. And so, for example, if we look at leadership, who are we promoting? What leaders are we developing? What policies are we creating? When we develop our budgets, because budgets indicate what our priorities are. Where do we put our money? How is our workforce? How is our workplace? And what is the culture like? What is the communication like? And how do we facilitate communication amongst our entire community? And that includes those of you who are here today, and then also the portions of our community that we still don't see. Down to the last word, systems. Operationalizing equity will bring us to a point where our systems can become equitable. It'll be ingrained into everything that we do. Not even a second thought it will take for us to operate equitably. And so when you go into these breakout rooms, this is what I'm asking that you keep in mind in everything that you do and in everything that the city of Peoria does going forward. This is what we want to do. This slide is just a bit about the Equal Opportunity Office, which is the office where I work. And my job is primarily to protect against various forms of discrimination. That includes employment, housing, and public accommodations. Also to develop fair and equitable procurement practices, to provide training internally and externally, and ultimately to lead the city in a pro-equity direction with my policy creation, operations, services, workplace practices, and in partnership with and in service to our communities. Lastly, this slide is a demonstration of some equity in action, and I see some of my PF volunteers out there who have been supportive. In August of last year, the Equal Opportunity Office rolled out the Peoria Equity and Accountability Program, which was a program dedicated to increasing minority and women-owned business utilization and visibility in our city. So this is just one example of a work in progress, and it is a lot of work. But this is an example of what we can do if we bond together and move forward in an equitable way. So next, I will bring up Stacy Peterson, our Strategic Communications Director.
Good afternoon. This is a tough slot, right? Last speaker after lunch. We're all kind of drained a little bit, but I'll do my best to bring this back. My name's Stacy Peterson. I am the strategic communication person for the city. So why is the communication person up here talking about art? Well, I've got a background in nonprofit arts management. I've been involved in several citywide arts initiatives, and I currently serve as the liaison for the Public Arts Advisory Commission for the city. So because of that, I was selected to talk to you today, and in many cases, if there's an art initiative that comes to City Hall, it's going to hit my desk at some point. Chief Diversity Officer Green and Police Chief Echevarria did a great job telling you how public safety and equity fit into your study groups, and I'm going to kind of take that a step further and say that art and culture also fits into those lenses of both of their work. First of all, for the police chief, I would contend that when we have public art on the street, you also have more people on the street, more eyes on the street, more activity on the street, and you usually see less crime as a result of that. When you look at equity, I also think it's really important that we think about arts and culture throughout our entire city. Oftentimes we know from working at the city that the people we serve, they're struggling in some cases with the day-to-day. How do they get fed? How do they find housing? So it's really hard to contend for an art and culture argument at that time. But some of the things I'm going to talk to you about today are going to talk about making art accessible within all areas of our community. So let's think about that. I like this quote because it comes from Lewis Mumford, who's one of the fathers of city development and planning. One of the words that you're going to hear bandied about a lot over the next 2 days is the word livability, and it was his mentor, Sir Patrick Geddes, who coined that frame. You see, Mumford believes that cities were more of social institutions, a little bit less than the built environment, so active, thriving places. As he says here, the chief function of the city is to convert power into form, energy into culture, dead matter into the living symbols of art, biological reproduction into social creativity. So, to have this conversation, we really have to have a broad definition of what is art and culture for the sake of our discussions today, and so you can carry them into your rooms. This is a very broad definition. I would take up all 10 minutes if I gave you every single example of art and culture, so it's small, can't do it all. But in general, it's an expression or celebration in music and performance. I've listed all kinds of things that arts could be considered in, including landscaping, culinary arts, in addition to the general theater, painting, and dance. It introduces the audience to new perspective and ideas, can be permanent or temporary, and I contend it should also be considered in city design and the built environment. In most of my examples today, you're going to see public art that is accessible and available in all areas of our city. I have a couple that are not Peoria-based. On the left, you have a temporary art exhibit when our yarn bombers decided to knit Cedric the Sea Dragon. In the middle, a music performance down at the SEFCU Center stage, and then the unveiling of the Richard Pryor sculpture. So, this brings us to where do art and culture play in the contribution of cities. This is the lens that the mayor mentioned at the beginning in her welcome and that the city manager later referred to. I have a huge list here. I'm not going to read them all. I know that you will scan them all. Some might be a little bit more applicable to you, right? So art and culture can create meaning. In neighborhoods, it helps share your meaning. You can find like-minded people. It can enhance the built environment, preserves culture, heals in areas where there is trauma, or can create a language for people who maybe fail at using words but can express their emotions otherwise. It generates income. The only capitalization I have on this slide is that it provides jobs for artists. But let me tell you, in order to provide jobs for artists, you have to support artists. They have to be able to live within the community. And we are very fortunate to have many artists who just live as artists within our community. But in order to have vibrant art in your city, you have to pay artists so they can survive, and you have to support arts education. While we're on this point, the city does not currently have a funding stream for public art. It's unlike other communities that have a 1% tax that fund public art throughout the community. Instead, we leverage our partnerships with private organizations for different art initiatives, and that kind of helps make up for that lack of financial stream. We do fund an arts promotion organization called Arts Partners, where their purpose is to promote the arts and artists in our region. I really like this quote from Americans for the Arts. It kind of brings together why we are here and talking about art and culture as part of all of our focus groups today. And I kind of cycle in on the middle where it says cities with an active and dynamic cultural scene are more attractive to individuals and business. It's really easy to say I like art. It's a lot harder to try to appeal to economic development arguments of art, unless you know exactly what that language kind of is. So, let's go into our study groups. We'll talk about each individual topic. For my Growing the Workforce people, I had to pull a quote from Richard Florida. Access to talented and creative people is to modern business what access to coal and iron ore was to steel making. Artists can contribute big value into your organizations or people with an artistic background. They're critical thinkers, they're innovative problem solvers, and the abundance of art in your community can lead people to your community, potential workers, potential visitors. It could be attraction to a place. It can be tourism. For business support, attraction, and retention, I wanted two really diverse examples, and I found that when I was going through some old pictures. Wasn't going to use the picture in the upper right of a beautifully plated dish, but it really told the story to me of business support, attraction, and retention. I'll get to that. So arts do strengthen our economy. They provide jobs, they boost revenue, retails, restaurant, hotels benefit. And on the lower right, you can see a packed arena at this very building. Think about all the bodies in the building, all the drinks that they purchase, the meals, the hotel rooms. It's undeniable, that economic impact. The upper right-hand corner is a little more nuanced. A few years ago, I was at a friend's house for dinner. She was celebrating an early retirement from Caterpillar, and she had hired Chef Cody to come in and cook a dinner for 8 of us. And at that time, Chef Cody was just selling bread through Zion and doing these private dinners and sometimes late-night dinners at Zion. So from that plated dinner in a small environment, he then grew to open the storefront with the bakery, and then as of 2 weeks ago, expanded into a full-service restaurant. And if you think about the scope of his work, the people that he's employed to work in the restaurant, the supplies he's had to purchase from local businesses, the people that have supported the expansion of it, his ripple effect of business support goes on, and it's so much more than just a beautifully plated dish, but supporting area businesses and other employees. Reimagining downtown Peoria. The Hello Peoria mural, I will fully admit, is on the edge of the warehouse district, but I'm claiming it for this slide, so we're going to use it. We know that for my Reimagining Downtown people, that art enlivens a place. We heard people this morning talking about the old fountains that used to be in Fulton Plaza and how people used to come downtown and listen to music and enjoy a night out in the city. We know that art and music can draw people, create vibrancy, add to a robustness that is otherwise not there. And I use the Hello Peoria mural as an example because it's on a city building that was sitting empty. Actually, not empty because our police department was using it for tactical exercises. So when you went in, there were like empty shell things on the floor. So it wasn't completely empty, but not a functional space. And Doug and Eileen Lunig came to the city and said, we really want to paint all over this building that you own. Will you let us? And our community development director, who has since retired, said, why not? Have full reign. And now it's listed as one of the most Instagrammable places in Peoria. It has now been expanded with works of art from Bradley students, and their professor, Dr. Heather Brameyer, has added sculptures. It's the perfect example of creative placemaking, taking an area, turning it into something else, and making it an attraction. The middle space I put up because it's Sculpture Walk Peoria. When Washington Street was being redeveloped with Tiger II Fund grants, the city council at that time decided to put locations for pedestals on the street, but there was no plan in place for a Sculpture Walk. until Joe Ritchie came to the city and said, I want to put sculptures on the street. And then it happened. And now on any given Sunday, you can see the docent, or Saturday, you can see the docents from the Peoria Art Guild going down and giving guided tours to people along Washington Street. And for those people who contend that Peoria's never reimagined their downtown, I included the graphic on the right, which happened in 1973, 50 years ago, when the city council was given urban money to come up with a new city plan, and they hired a Greek urban planner named Angelos Dimitrios, and that was his vision for the future of the city of Peoria, complete with an Epcot Center City Hall. So there has been innovation, just hasn't been realized. I'm challenging my downtown innovation folks to come up with something good today. Neighborhood investment. I included 3 really visible examples that the city's been involved in. The first on the lower left is on Howett Street several years ago. We had a large number of homes that were going to be demolished. And you can imagine when you live on a street and you're looking at homes that are covered up with boards, it's probably not the most positive experience to walk outside. And the city's community development department partnered with Peoria High School's art department to do a board-up beautification program. And they said, what would you like to see? And what do you think your neighbors would like to see? And talk to their neighbors. And for these homes that were slated for demolition, at least for a short time, they could have a little bit of artwork on it, but more importantly, more eyes on the street kept people out of the buildings, which becomes its own dangerous situation. In the middle, you'll see a graphic from the splash pad on Griswold, and it was important when the city worked with the PHA, and the Illinois American Water Company, that they incorporated elements of art, and they did in the design with that tensile structure. And then on the far right is the faces of the East Bluff, and that was a wonderful example of seeing residents on the East Bluff through the eyes of photographer Keith Cotton. That was the day of the ribbon cutting, and when we talk about art bringing in neighborhood pride and community likeness, you would have seen it if you'd been there with us on that day. So you can see that art connects community members to their neighbors and their shared history. One warning when you come to neighborhood development and art. Typically, there are usually a lot of artists in neighborhoods that are not very expensive neighborhoods. Artists typically, when they're starting off, don't have a lot of money. So sometimes they're living in neighborhoods and they create a vibrancy there. And then developers see this, find it very appealing, and sometimes come in and take over, which prices out the people who are living in those neighborhoods. It's called art washing, and it's very much a real thing. So I caution my neighborhood development people when they think they're talking about neighborhood investment and improvements with art. Couple more. Infrastructure improvement. One of my favorite things to talk about is how can we improve the infrastructure with artwork, and there are a lot of alternatives here. Many of you have seen the planters that are at the intersection of Columbia Terrace and University. They've been painted several times over the years. Well, those aren't really planters. They're stormwater drains, and what their main service is to provide a visual obstruction because the city, when they redid University Street, created bump outs. And we knew that people were so used to driving that street without bump outs, we had to put up a visual obstruction because we needed to make it a safer space and slow down traffic. So the planters serve a very real purpose, and we know that they work because a couple of years ago, 6 of them were hit. Six, right? Within a 4-month period. So they served their purpose. They didn't hit people, they hit concrete planters. And the community, I know it sounds terrible, but it's true. I caught heat from talking about it in the last session, but I'm owning it. Anyway, so they did create a purpose, and we have found a way to beautify them, which is phenomenal. Also, I brought this up in the last session, I'll bring it up now. Unpopular opinion, roundabouts. This is not a roundabout discussion. That's another topic for another time. However, if you go up to Alta Road in the north side of Peoria, the grass is very overgrown. I see nodding heads in the roundabout. Landscape art. It's that way for a reason. We have the people that say, hurry up and cut down the grass, it looks so terrible, you're violating city code. And then we have the traffic engineers that say, we have to leave it long, because when people approach a roundabout and the grass is long, they naturally slow down because they don't know what is ahead. So it's using art to slow down traffic patterns to keep people safer. In this slide, I've got an example on the left from Florida. Martin County, Florida is facing the same CSO, combined sewer overflow problems that the city of Peoria is. And just as we use rain gardens and bioswales and creative gardening to educate the public, they're actually using storm drains and they're cutting them and creating fountains out of them. It's called the Ripple Stormwater Eco Art Project. Of course, the middle is the portal sculpture down at the Harrison Roundabout. And on the far right, who knew that a light installation, considered artwork, would take over an entire community? People just absolutely love those lights, those programmable lights on the Murray Baker Bridge. So this brings us to city fiscal health and financial future, and I know our city treasurer is in the room. I see him. My eyes are on him now. I'm going to have a question for you specifically in one moment. I'd like everybody to take a look at what our arts can do for our community and our state. The financial impact is absolutely undeniable. But to have art, you have to support art. Got to keep repeating that. Super important. Pay artists. They are also creative people and worth their pay. However, the reason I put in the pictures of City Hall is that this building was built in 1899, and it was very important at that time that the mayor/contractor, and that's true, he was both the mayor and the chief contractor on the project, he wanted to make sure that the public knew that the city was rolling in the bucks. Oh, John Morris is here too. This is a Morris competition. Who's going to answer first? In 1899, what were we making all this money off of, gentlemen? Booze, whiskey. You got it. I don't know which Morris got it first, but I'll give you both credit. So, because we were making so much money on whiskey, the mayor at the time wanted to ensure that the building looked opulent, and opulent it looks. So even at that time, he made sure, I'm assuming it was a unilateral decision, I could be totally wrong, but he wanted to make sure that artists and craftsmen were employed to make sure the building looked as beautiful as possible. And it certainly does, and it's a standing tribute to the fiscal health of our city in a snapshot in time in 1899 when that building opened up. So all of that brings us back to why we are here today. And I want to thank you. You're giving up valuable time in your own day today and tomorrow to contribute to this important process. And you all play a valuable role, even though we are still missing voices at this table and hope to capture them as this process goes on. This is why it's important. Fiber artist Janet Eckelman, and I have a picture of her fiber art above her portrait, that's a suspended fiber piece in a plaza in Milan, Italy, said, "In my regular life, I am very involved in commissions for cities and sometimes countries. And I think of public art as a team sport. The outcome is only possible with the interaction of all the players." So I thank all of you for being here. I want to acknowledge that some people are missing from this discussion today, and we want to make sure that we're going to provide space for them at our table, because we want their voices too. And I hope that you can carry some of this arts and culture information lens in with you to your groups today. And now, I will introduce to you our Assistant City Manager, Kimberly Richardson, who is the architect of this entire two-day event. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. I am going to be very quick because my job is to get you into the breakout rooms and starting the conversation today. So first, thank you all to the speakers for providing the context and the overview as we begin our strategic planning process with this kickoff, these two-day kickoff event. So if you all have your name badges, you've been probably questioning, or maybe you figured it out by now, that you have a colored dot. That dot is corresponding with the breakout room that you're going to be assigned to have your further discussion. So if you are reimagining downtown and you have 1 and 2, you're going to be in these first two rooms up here at the front. And if you are neighborhood investment, 1 and 2 or 2, you're going to be in room 1. Room 2 are right here to my left. If you are business support, attraction, retention, you are a green dot. Green dot is going to be in the far back right-hand corner in the back here in that room. Infrastructure improvement is going to be in the far, I believe that's infrastructure, correct? Oh no, infrastructure is right here. Infrastructure is in the room right next to the craft table. And infrastructure is red. I apologize. I'm trying to read names and colors.
Growing the workforce is orange. Orange is in the back, and that's going to be in the back left-hand corner. That'll be your room. And then finally, city fiscal health and financial future is blue, and that's going to be next to the craft table to your left here. If you can please make sure you go to those assigned rooms. We're going to be in that room until 3:40. You're asked to be back in the ballroom at 3:45 so we can conclude the rest of the day's session. Thank you.